You are now listening to Ride With Me, the Flat Tire Podcast.
Welcome to Ride With Me, episode 130. Today is February 1st, 2025. And again, before I get to my guest, guys, the hotline, 818-806-8595. Just give it a call, shoot a question. Your voice would be added to this podcast with your question. And then if it's for me, I'll answer it as best as possible. If it's for a guest, a previous guest, if it's for a future idea, if it's for calling me out on my bullshit, fact checks, all that good stuff, just give that number a call. You can call anonymous. I don't get access to your number. 818-806-8595. Also Instagram, Ride With Me Podcast. TikTok was put back last week. I didn't promote it last week, but yeah, TikTok is, I guess, going to be on for the next 90 more days. So FTA Podcast, same thing for YouTube, FTA Podcast. And then if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, if you're on Spotify, hit that follow button, man. I really appreciate it. And now on to my guest. Sorry, my throat's a little because I decided to drink milk before I recorded this episode. So if I clear my throat multiple times, Brian, I'm sorry, buddy. And like I said, my guest here is Bryant. I've also met him on TikTok. And Bryant, I've told people multiple times I run out of friends, so I make new friends on TikTok. So how are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. It's a pleasure to be here and a pleasure to be here for your audience. I really have faith in what you're doing. I respect you. And, I took time to listen to some of your podcasts and hear these raw stories. And a lot of them are very, very inspirational. So I'm just happy to be here. And if we reach out and help one person, I think you and I have done our part.
That's the point of this podcast of this podcast. If someone's going through something similar, they can hear what my guest, how they overcame it, and, maybe it'll help them as best as possible. But we're not therapists. We're not trying to change the world. We're just giving us, like I said before, I can't have someone on here talking about what it was like walking on the moon if they've never been on the moon. So, these are real stories from people, regular people. I listened to Michael Rosenbaum's podcast. It's called Inside of You. And he has celebrities. And they go through the same, pretty much same idea, same stories. And I was like, at first when I started this podcast, I was like, we're only coming on here to vent. So then, I continued doing it. And then this past April of last year, I caught on to his podcast. And I'm listening to his podcast. And I was like, holy shit, he's doing the same thing that I'm doing. But he did it first. So it motivated me to kind of like do it more. So for the month of December, for the month of January, I was on top of it every week recording an episode. So here we are starting the month of February with a new episode. So thank you, Brian, for coming on here, man.
You're welcome.
Start with the little icebreaker, buddy. How's the weather over there? I've seen the East Coast. Pretty much the East Coast is covered in cold temperatures right now.
I'm in West Virginia and up in the Panhandle by Ohio and Pennsylvania, and we have had in this tri-state area some very cold weather, a lot of babysitting of pipes, a lot of frozen things. But, the people here, they all pull together and help each other. It's just a great area to be in. So the weather is what it'll be, but the people are amazing.
Right. That's good.
For me, I was born and raised in the Bay Area in California. So we have, California in common. I was raised by a single mom, and some of the things that I experienced back then were watching someone really work a lot.
Right.
So in my life, I've tried to incorporate some hobbies and some different things like this to balance that out. Because we all have a tendency to really pour ourselves into our careers and our work for different reasons. Right. Sometimes it's an identifying point that we, connect with ourselves. Other times it's the need to survive and struggle. Sometimes it's because of life changes. So some of my hobbies are going out in four-wheelings, photography. I love music in all aspects, theater and all the arts.
Right.
So that's a little bit of me.
So real quick, let's sorry, I kind of gave you the signal of keep talking because I had to clear my throat. So you did it. But
yes, sir.
you said you were born in California. How long were you in California for?
Well, I was born and raised there, and then I joined the military at about 21 years old. So that's when I left California, and I was stationed in upstate New York.
Gotcha.
I went through the Gulf War era and all this, and then after exiting the military, I moved to Oregon, spent 25 years in Oregon, Southern Oregon. And worked all throughout the state in different facets. I've had several businesses. I've done different careers. Then I moved, after 25 years in Oregon, I moved to Arizona. And there again, I, had businesses, had careers. I've always dealt in houses and things like this. Right. So I'd live in one, fix it, either sell it, do this or that. So I've always been very productive and busy, and sometimes too busy.
I believe it. Well, so how was it? How was it growing up in San Francisco? I wouldn't know because I didn't grow up in San Francisco.
When I was younger, I grew up in a little town called Livermore, California, and at that point in time, it was a little small, humble rodeo town, and it was probably 60 miles east of the Bay Area. But in today's world, 60 miles is nothing. It's a very short commute. If minus traffic jams and traffic hours, everyone. Okay, let's keep that in mind because Andy, he travels doing his thing, so he knows how bad this traffic can get.
Especially in Southern California.
Yes, but back then it was a lot different. It was slower. It was calmer. It was less populated. So it was a beautiful little community. Now it's actually these same little humble houses are $250,000 for a shanty in that same town. So costs rise, people work harder, spend more time doing what they need to do to even exist there.
No, yeah, San Francisco is very, very expensive. If I'm correct, San Francisco is one of the areas where people that work by the hour need to stay out.
Yes.
Yeah. So, how were you as a child?
Well, I was raised by a single mom. My dad and my mother had, their problems, and he went his way. And really at that time, you couldn't be pursued very easy. So he just kind of faded into the sunset for actually 7 years. And we didn't know if he was dead, alive. We had no clue. So my mom was stuck with all of the bills because my father was a rancher and a carpenter. So I remember being a young kid watching, collectors come to the door. My mom was working 2 jobs around the clock. She worked as a nurse. And then after her regular job as working as a nurse, she would get off work and go to work at a nursing home. So this woman worked 16 hours a day. And I remember collectors coming to the door and knocking on the door. Because back then they didn't have the same collection laws as they do now. And my mom opened the door and the person said, "Ma'am, we're here to collect. You do realize we can take your furniture." And she opened the door wider and she said, "Why don't you look around?" She says, "Maybe you'll do me a favor and take it. Haul it off to the dump. I can get better stuff at the Goodwill." They left and never came back and tried to collect another penny. Because they realized that she had been put into a bad spot. So they just picked up a diesel semi and a trailer and some tractors and hauled it off. But she still had to clear a lot of debt that was not her responsibility. And that took a lot of hours away from me as a young child.
Right. So I'm assuming it's obvious, common sense, the question there. Obviously, your relationship with your mother was way better than your father's.
Oh, I never really, I was young. So when you're young, you heal easier than when you're, say, 13, 14 years old. I was 5 years old. And then a lot of the healing or what you go through as a child also depends on what is being imprinted in your mind. My mom really never talked derogatory about my father. She gave me every opportunity to whatever if he ever appeared. But being in a hiatus for 7 years, that doesn't give any chance of relationship. So of course it was stronger with my mother.
I just had a conversation with my daughter last week about similar to what you're just saying right now, because there's 3 kids, 3 different personalities, and I read once that a child's mind hardens at 5, And like I told my daughters, like when I got custody of you, you were already 11. So the the teachings of
Correct.
from the moment you were born till 11 were already hardened in your brain. The reason why
Correct.
my middle one, my 17-year-old, struggles a little bit differently is because he was 7. So pretty much for those 7 years, what he witnessed, what he saw, what he grew up with, and then compared to my little one who was only 4 years old. So there's a gap. There's what I'm saying. The 5 years is when your mind hardens. So the little one don't give a shit. He's like, oh well, she picks me up. She picks me up. She doesn't pick me up. She doesn't pick me up. And I feel like my older one, the older, my 17-year-old still kind of wants. I don't think he'll own up to it, but I think he still wants his mom to be a mom, but she's not. And then the older one is like, well, this is what my cards dealt, and so this is what I got stuck with. So yeah, we just had that conversation with my daughter a couple of days ago, last week. So
yes. I agree with everything you just said. My sister is 7 years older than me. So when I was going through this at 5, she was going through this at 13, and the effect on us was completely different.
Yeah.
Just completely different. And you described it in every way. So that was kind of that. How this had an impact on me and different things in my life was that I always wanted to do and provide better for my family than what I had. And I think this is something that we do here in America. We want to give our children a better life. We want to be able to give them, good clothing, good food, good education. And in the pursuit of that and running multiple businesses, I found myself doing the same thing that my mother was doing. I was working 16 hours a day, and sometimes that has an effect on your availability for your children. So even though our relationship was strong and I knew it was all based out of care, and at 5, I knew what she was doing. I knew she was doing what she was doing to provide for us because we all had a very mature dialogue in our home, not on adult matters that a child shouldn't be having, but we knew what not to waste. We knew what to turn off lights, and we knew the reasons why we were doing that because she's working. Myself, I got caught into the American dream, like many of us do, and I had businesses that succeeded and failed, and these kind of things. But sometimes I applied too much time to things that were not or shouldn't have been priority.
Right.
I recall when my oldest son, he's now like 35, but I remember when he is 8 or 9 years old, taking him to all of his baseball practices, all of his baseball games, and attending everything, and helping out and these kind of things. And as my schedule increased and got busier over the years trying to provide that American dream, I found myself in a position that maybe I wasn't attending as many practices. All of a sudden, I was skipping a game. And then it deteriorated down to the point that I remember just opening the door on the vehicle and dropping him off at a game. And, I remember him looking back at me and me looking back at him, and I thought, this is completely out of control.
Right.
I have to slow down my life, and I have to start prioritizing what's important. And it wasn't trying to necessarily have bigger, newer, and more.
Right. And you caught that on, obviously, after, as an adult and having your own children. But back then, when your mom was doing it, you had no idea. You knew she was going to work.
Yeah, it just became normal watching someone work to that degree because that's what it was. Yeah. My mind was young. I didn't have the depth of thought of, that she was clawing her way out of a well.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And then there weren't the same kind of economic help that there is now for people in trouble. So you didn't get the same things. Yeah. You didn't get, housing vouchers, and you didn't get food stamps at that level that we do today in America. And I'm thankful for all those who have them and need them. I'm glad all the people are getting them because it's difficult out here. And I'm glad that we live in a society that we can help our brothers and sisters.
I remember my mother-in-law had a story. I heard it once. She said that back then when she bought her house, financially they weren't there. Like they were struggling. So she went to go apply for food stamps. And for till this day, she's not a big fan of the government because she went to apply for food stamps and they told her, well, nah, you're making a payment on a house, so you don't qualify for food stamps. And like, wait a minute, you're telling me I have to be homeless for me to qualify for food stamps? So she made it a goal to ensure that none of her kids ever needed food stamp assistance or anything with welfare or anything. So,
yes,
but back then it didn't even exist.
Right. Now, I watched that in the later years. You know, after watching her work her whole life, my mother was never able to afford a home of her own. The little bit of money that she had when she did age, she had lupus for many years. And as her health deteriorated, the system actually made us as the family deplete everything before we could suitably have her somewhere because of the astronomical cost of medical care and, you know, these type of things. So what you're saying is a true reality. And that was sad for me to watch a person who had worked their whole life, never met these dreams that we're capable of, earnestly doing it all out of compassion and love, but they never really enjoyed their life.
That sucks for we see that nowadays, man. Like nowadays you have people with even two incomes and you still can't afford a good life.
So the reason I came here today was I thought it would be beneficial to share these things, you know, and like let people know some changes that I've made and some things that I've came to know by the things that I've explained between the way I was raised and the things that I actually did in my own life, like dropping my son off at a baseball game and leaving. You know, watching my attendance progressively get less and less in something that I should have been fully engaged in, as I always was. I started letting different priorities of wanting to do better and give more interrupt the fact that my time was more important than the dollars or the gifts, or any other thing. And you can't replace that. So, you know, there comes a time when you have to just step back and realize that, you know, out of 10 things on a list of paper, probably only 2 are essential to get done right now.
Right.
Okay. So your success and your overall happiness and everything can come off just two out of 10 things in a list. And we're all capable of hitting those 2 out of 10 things in a day, right? Maybe it's setting up a boundary. Maybe it's telling someone no. It could be a million things. It could be avoiding a time burner situation.
Yeah.
For instance, you know, people that will want your time, they'll occupy your schedule and then they no-show in one form or fashion, whether it be friend, family, or business. Time burners are horrible. So if you start to set up little boundaries, you can start to save a little bit of time. And really, we can always kind of change our schedules. Sometimes maybe we have to let something go a little bit that we can come back to in order to do something that's going to last forever, like be it your kid's concert, be it your kid's soccer field, these kind of things, because we can't get that time back. Exactly. We can always work overtime a different day, or when they're at a different level in their life, maybe we pour in harder to our goals. I'm not telling people not to follow their goals or not to dig out of that well. But what I am saying is start to prioritize, you know, do the big task in your life first that you need to survive. Say no to people that are burning your time.
Right.
Because it's hard to get it back.
So do you feel that when your dad popped back in the picture, like 7 years later, that he was going to try to make up time, those 7 years? Did he come back, try to make up those 7 years?
No. Ironically, he didn't want to be found. One of my uncles, he had disappeared from even his side of the family. I mean, he hiatus, you know, and one of my uncles had found out where he was. He was living in Reno, Nevada, and he had a ranch. So he went back to the same kind of things that he did, but, you know, he linked up with another female and kind of swam off their back.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, this was something that happened before, middle, and after. This was his MO.
Gotcha.
Yeah, he liked the girls.
Oh, okay then. He did not come back try to make up time.
He liked the girls. But my uncle actually found out about where he was, and he let my mom know. And she just extended it down to us like, hey, here's where your dad is. If you're wanting to get to know him or whatever it is, here's your shot.
Right.
At that time, I was 13 years old. So I actually took my own money that I had, earned from working and things like this. And, I wrote and we had phone call or whatever. And I paid my own way to go see this person. And what I seen wasn't a great thing. I seen a drinker still, drinking and being kind of nasty towards females, to be clean on here, and it was just something that I don't have respect for when I've seen somebody work as hard as I did my mother. So I just elected to leave well enough alone and not have bad feelings or anger in my life, because truly it was somebody I didn't know anyway.
Right.
So why go that deep in yourself, right?
Exactly.
There wasn't a bonding attachment like you had explained with your younger one. And I went to go see, because we all have to fulfill our curiosity. But there was also a part of me at 13 that was mature enough to be like, I really don't like what I see. I have morals. I have beliefs. I was raised a certain way, and that doesn't align with it.
Yeah. Okay.
So I just decided to not, and he never put out any effort. So it was a clean break, and, things happen for reasons, but I didn't feel like being scarred my whole life. Why would I want to carry that luggage? I didn't pack that bag.
Exactly. And again, if he would have been around longer to you're like maybe 8, 9, or 10, then it would have affected you differently. But
no, it affected my sister highly different.
Yeah, exactly.
It affected her a lot different. For her, it was a big emotional hole that was never healed. And the more his true self was revealed, the bigger that hurt was for her, because she truly wanted to believe.
God, yeah. No, I believe
she
it.
wanted to believe.
Yeah, no, I 100% believe it. Like I said, that's my son. He won't say it, but I feel like the reason why he has his little anger issues once in a while is because he wants something that he knows he can't get. So hopefully,
yes.
Hopefully he'll grow out of that. Hopefully one day.
Well, a lot of times people will never give us what we deserve, and that's just life. They won't give you the apologies that you need. They're not going to give you the compassion you need, and they're not going to give you understanding. So this is where you just have to clarify for your own self where you are.
Yeah.
And what's your responsibility and what you should carry or not. And I think, like you're saying, as a child, you almost have more of a natural ability to shun off what you didn't do and what you're not responsible for than you do a little older. Sometimes I think it's harder to do so.
Yeah, exactly. So what got you interested in the military? What happened there that made you want to go? Oh,
goodness. Well, that Bay Area was changing. As I was saying, at first it was a little humble town, but by the 1990s, as you know, there was a pandemic of different things coming in. That's when we had first seen the first wave of crack cocaine and all this different stuff like this. And there were little organized, the Bay Area, it's like LA, Oakland, all these areas, they're not, they're not easy grounds. So as everything changed, all that came in, because where bad criminals were bad criminals in Oakland, they were great criminals in Little Livermore, California. And the same thing with San Jose and San Francisco. The bad criminals that aren't too good, they come to the little towns. You see, they get out of the big city because they'll get eaten up.
Right.
But they do well in little vulnerable areas. So all this minor league garbage starting to infiltrate. And for me, it was time to go, because at that time, my oldest boy was probably a year and a half. And I looked at everything around me and I said, my goodness, there's too many ways to get in trouble here. And so that isn't my life.
So you already had a son before you went to the military?
Yes, sir. I ended up having my son, and he was probably 2 years old. So I had him at 18, and I was working doing automotive painting and this kind of thing at that time. And I ended up, deciding that it'd be best for us to just get out of California and to go into the military. And I was hoping to make a career of it. Yet I was injured during service.
Oh, man.
And I've had multiple surgeries and things. So I've rehabilitated myself as you see me.
Yeah.
But it's been a long road of having to change occupations to stay ahead of my military injuries at times in my life. And that's caused me to have to work immensely during the times when I was raising my children, and sometimes businesses would fail because my body couldn't hold up to the amount of work I was doing, and it just sent me all over the board. There was never a happy medium, it was always just going full board to survive.
Right.
And even though I would make good money at some times, if my body couldn't hold up, well, guess what? Now the law average, you're not making that good of money, right?
Yeah.
So, I went through cycles of that, and it just kept me in permanent hustle, and it kept me being the permanent new guy because of military injuries. And in spite of what they say about thank you for your service, you know what our veterans need? They need an offer for a job. They don't need thanked. Most of us volunteered for what we did. The draft hasn't been since when? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, when I hear people thank you for my service, I'm appreciative of that. But you know what I needed many years? I needed a job offer.
Yeah.
I needed a job offer. I needed somebody who would understand that I was a disabled veteran, and that every once in a while I needed to offer medical. But that's not so easy.
So, were you shot up were you shot in the buttocks?
No, I was actually shot when I was working as a deputy sheriff in Oregon. As a deputy sheriff in Oregon, corrections officer. I was working for a little teeny town, and the jail only held like 18 people. So imagine the smallest little jail you've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I was up at the training facility, and they built a brand new training facility, and it was a ricochet-proof range indoor. Yeah, so they got rid of the outdoor range, where you could shoot a gun outside, and they brought everyone in this big building, and they had us like shoulder length apart, and they had us 10 feet from the targets because they shoot 10 yards, 20 yards all the way back. So it was like in the first of the shooting cycle, we go and shoot some bullets. Next thing you know, I hear the range cadre, call for us to put the firearms in the ready position, which is up by the center of your chest. And then they instructed us to holster it because everyone's just trained to do whatever they say on the range. And I look back over my shoulder, and I see this instructor down on the ground, and he's grabbing his ankle. So then they instruct us, I want everyone to check yourselves and see if anyone's got hit. So I start checking myself, and I look next to my holster where my pistol was. And at some point in time when we were all firing at that target, somebody's round ricocheted off the chunks of rubber in the back or off of the frame, bounced back, went through my leg right next to my holster where I could not even see the bullet hole.
What?
It just skimmed it like a piercing.
Oh, okay.
Just skimmed it like a piercing. Went through, and it hit that instructor in the leg, and he's still wearing the bullet. So I didn't even know I was hit. And, the reason why there's such quick rounds, and with a graze, your body doesn't feel that. And have you ever cut yourself deep to where it takes a long time for the blood to come to the surface?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what this was like. So, it wasn't even bleeding. So, you're trying to check yourself, and there's not even blood. Only thing that caught me on, I seen a little frayed piece of pant material because my uniforms were always ironed every day because I'm kind of OCD like that if I'm wearing a uniform. And I seen this little frayed piece of thing, and I was like, oh boy, my pocket's kind of coming undone here. I wonder what. Then next thing I know, there's a bullet hole. So I raised my hand. Yeah, I'm hit too. But
every
it
time
didn't set anything back.
Every time I hear a military story and somebody got shot, the first thing I can think of is, Lieutenant Dan, you want ice cream?
Friendly fire, my friend, in a ricochet-proof range. In a ricochet-proof range.
Oh, that's crazy.
And what's funny about that is having a bullet hole, not one higher command person came and spoke to me. Nothing. I went and got a medical release and returned myself back to duty at the medical release, but not one range cadre official, not one official at the Oregon Department of Public Safety and Training.
Yeah.
No official came and talked to me.
The hell?
It was a ricochet-proof range that was new. You think they wanted that on the news?
Right. True.
after how many millions of dollars being spent on that. And then I checked back with some other people that were still in, and they had ricochets after that. One took off a sprinkler system up in there and knocked it off. So I think they've made modifications to it at this point.
Like, we're going to go back outside.
Yeah, nothing like being in a pinball machine with live ammo, buddy.
Seriously, the fuck? Didn't they ever hear the stories or where parents say, "Don't play ball in the house"? It's for a reason to not.
Yeah, I don't like shooting inside personally. Everyone has their preference. I would rather be outside a little bit than be in an indoor range. Oh
my god, that was kind of stupid on them.
That is what it is. Modern technology.
Yeah. Earlier you were talking about your hobbies, and photography is one of them that caught my attention. What got you into photography?
Photography. Well, okay. One of the sidebar businesses I used to do was music and concert venues and promotions. And then little by little, I gained volume and worked my way to doing photography in Las Vegas on some red carpet events and different shows, and was did concerts. You remember the horrible shooting in Las Vegas that took place?
Yeah, some years ago.
After that, a lot of artists came together and they did a benefit concert there, and I was able to attend the benefit concert and do photography. And the good thing that was there is that everyone were volunteers from the original concert. So that took place over there, and just attending different things like that and hearing the stories and hearing the different testimonies and seeing the people regather after tragedy. And I was doing that for a while, and then of course the vid popped right at some point, and it kind of just changed everyone's world, I think. So just different things change things,
right?
So once again, you can't be, it shut down a lot of people's worlds.
Yeah.
People changed occupations. People had no occupations. People couldn't be around people. Businesses weren't, it was just a mess. So, you change, you evolve. And I've always done houses, keep in mind. So the houses and housing market and these things are always my primary investment. And then I go to work regular hours. Typically, I'll take a job or I'll do my own sole proprietorships.
Right.
So I always have two balls going in the air still, but I've learned how to structure it to where I'm not swallowed alive by it.
Makes sense. You want to take a quick little water break, buddy? And then we'll be right back.
If you need one, sure.
Yes, sir. Let's take a quick little water break.
It's good. I have good, strong relationships with my dad, my mom, all my grandparents.
What do you feel the pros and cons are about having divorced parents?
Pros would probably be, more or less you kind of see more of the world instead of just being in one area. It's continuous back and forth, going to different areas, So you kind of are out more than usual. You also have 2 Christmases.
Yeah.
2 Thanksgivings. Basically two of almost every holiday, which is great. Feels great. 2 birthdays. It's pretty fun. 2 cakes, all that stuff. More food, which I love food.
I had I'm gonna say had because I don't talk to him anymore,
And we're back. Oh man, sorry buddy. I needed that bathroom break, dude. I've been drinking water. Like I said, if I drink coffee, anything besides water before I start recording, I have to clear my throat, and it's embarrassing having to go every 5 minutes. So, yeah, I've been drinking water.
Understandable.
So, yeah, I couldn't hold it anymore. So, but let's get back to it. Bryant, you said earlier that you had to drop off your son at his baseball game, and I know what you mean by that. I know where you're going with that because I know what it like seeing your kids' faces when they see you at their band performance or their game. It means a lot. So, you say you had to just drop them off and take off. What was that? How was that?
Well, it was a time in my life where, just like yourself, I only have two children. One is now 35 and one's 28. Back then, we're talking about the ages that we were talking before of, say, 8 and 12. Their mom picked an old lifestyle. Like, remember when I had said that I went to the military to get away from all the different things that were coming into that Bay Area?
Yeah.
Part of that was also getting her away from a lifestyle that she, dabbled in drugs, and I didn't at that level. And moving away was to get away from that. When we returned back to Oregon after my time in service and things, of course, she kind of found certain friends, and that ended up creating a situation where I was primarily the parent, and then that created a situation where we were divorced, and I ended up taking custody of my kids. So
props for the dads. Props for the dads.
Yeah, and it was very hard because the system was very stacked against, and it took a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of waste that could have went to the children.
So real quick, really quick,
sir.
buddy, you are the only father that I've known, that I know or I've met, that I've heard that got custody of his kids. Because everybody tells me, no way, how was that possible? You were able to take the kids from their mom, and you hardly ever see that. So I know this wasn't part of the topic or anything like that, but can you share a little bit of that process?
Sure. For me, what it came down to is virtually the courts deem a lot of things. I'm going to be very simplistic. The courts judge some things very simplistically. A lot of times comes down to where the children are when this disruption between the marriage takes place. So let's say that you, as the male, you remove yourself from the home and you remove yourself from your children. Then in that instance, the parent that's still at that home, that still has them in that school district, that's still keeping their life normal, that gives them the upper hand right out of the gate. So in my situation, my children's mom fell in love and went to Virginia because she thought she was in love, and she abandoned everybody. Mm-hmm. And I continued to keep the stability of the home, and I continued to keep everything like this. And then there was the, drugs and this kind of different things that I didn't go there to throw any rocks. And I told her straight out, look, this is the way it's going to go. If you want me to go in there and throw hand grenades in this court, I've got all the proof and all the hand grenades all day. Yeah. And,
real quick,
I've done nothing but work and save. So
listen to what you just said right there. I have all the proof. And that's when with me, they tell me, man, like, damn, she must have been a piece of work. And I'm like, I just had facts. You don't win custody of your kids with hearsay. You win them with
or emotion.
Facts.
You can't do it off emotion.
Yeah.
And that's something that's hard to separate because people want to go in with emotion. But when you document things and you keep times and record and places and faces and maybe get a written testimony that backs everything, and you can show, look, I've been paying all these bills. I'm the one who went to the child's conference every time. I'm the one who takes the baby to the doctor. I'm the one who pays the babysitter. And when you have all these things in order, then it's not hard for a judge to look at solid facts.
Exactly.
But you have to conduct yourself higher than you ever have, because these people also have a magical power of knowing what button hits you and will push you. So you have to raise higher than any hurt and really know yourself and what your mission is.
Yeah.
And that's to protect your children, whether you're a male or a female.
Yeah. No, yeah. That was perfect, man. Like I said, I have people that hit me up after I started doing this podcast. I got people that hit me up and it's like, hey, dude, really? You did what? And
you have to do things for the right reasons. If you're not in a spot stable to do the best by the children, then by no means should you do that to the children.
Yeah.
And maybe being the most love you could show would be to let loose a little bit. But if you're in a position to where the other parent is living reckless and they're exposing your children to negative things, you need to stand up, gather information, learn that it's going to take time. You're going to get a lot of no's. You're going to get a lot of things, but you have to stay persistent because you're fighting for what's right.
Exactly.
And you'll get there. and you'll win.
Exactly. So I'm sorry. Back to your family time, buddy. With your
No,
with your
not
kids.
a problem.
You cut a memory right there, and it's like, wait a minute.
You asked.
Actually, I take that back.
You asked. I answered.
No, yeah, and actually, I do have one more person that I know. His name's Luis. He got custody of his son too. When you were talking about your story, I remember because something similar happened to him. But anyways, what happened?
Just do it from a place of love. Don't do it out of revenge. Don't do it out of spite. You got to do it all out of love for that child. Don't do it out of nothing against that mate because they're not well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Saying you're not helping nothing by tainting your child on the other parent or any of that alienating stuff. Don't do it that way.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that always got thrown in my face. Oh, you only did it to get payback. You only did it to get back at me. I'm like,
no.
Nah, I did it because I love my kids, and I saw that my children were starting to grow up the same way that I grew up, and I was like, no. So yeah, yep. But back to I think you were in the middle of your son's conversation about your son's baseball or somewhere there.
Oh. Well, I guess the transition of when I realized I have to do something a little different is thinking backwards upon those memories. Okay, let's propel forward to my current situation. You know, of course, I'm no longer married to my kid's biological mom. She actually passed away from her lifestyle choices.
Oh, man.
Once again, leaving me with the heavy burden of adult children. Now, when you have adult children, it doesn't get cheaper, you guys. They start needing divorce attorneys, too. They start needing transmissions for their cars. They start needing big dollar ticket items, right? So you got to still have your stuff together. It's not like you're buying a tennis shoe anymore.
Right.
So I got kind of hit with that burden. I did get remarried. I have a wonderful family and 2 bonus sons. One is 13 and one is 18. The oldest is in West Virginia University studying business, and the youngest one, he is a hockey player and skates, both very humble and, you know, raised with a lot of love. So having said that, at this point, my compare and contrast of my previous life is I too was running hyper vigilant in my old life for multiple reasons. Some to try to provide better than what my parents had provided me. And I got caught up into a cycle to where I wasn't even attending my child's practices at baseball games. I, remember letting him out the door to go play his game. And I was like, oh my gosh, something has to change. Then came the custody things. Then came a million other obstacles, military injuries, trying to stay employed, a million things. So my time was being burned. My time was being used on trying to do all these things. And it was impossible to keep up and do them all efficiently. So now that I have a second chance to, be blessed enough with 2 young men that love me and need me, I see that the time is crucial.
Right.
I
think I'm there right now. That they're 15 and going on 16 and 18. Man, I feel like they need me more now than they did when they were smaller. So
yeah. So now looking back, what I see. Sorry, I had to clear my throat, as you could see.
No worries.
It changed for me. Now my value system's a lot different. There's a way to earn money. There's a way to claw yourself out of things. There's a way to do all these things that I've spoke of. But if you see yourself on a treadmill of life to where you're spending, 2 jobs or a job and a half to pay the bills, and you're not attending your child's functions, and you're not there, in different regards for your family, it's probably time to reevaluate what you're doing and maybe make some lists and prioritize certain things, because the time with them only comes once. But there's multiple ways to maybe make other changes. So at some point you have to have a cutoff point to survival, and you have to rest. You have to rest. You have to love. You have to be with your family, because that's what they're there for, and they need you. And I know it's difficult to slow down, but it's necessary.
Right. Yeah, I like that you said that you need to rest. You need to rest.
Yeah, you do. Okay, here, for instance, I remodel houses, and I'm actually living on a project right now that I'm doing, working 7 days a week. So, I'm living on the job. I never leave the job. And at times I wake up and my body's busted up and my body's sore and I'm tired and I'm mentally just not my best. I have shut down this operation in the middle of the day, went and soaked in a nice bathtub and came back and had the most stellar half of my other day because I took a simple hour to rest. So you'd be surprised what 30 minutes, an hour would do if you reach the right state of mind. But having said that, you really have to prioritize some things. If you make a list, like I had said, of 10 things on a list, there's probably 2 on them that make a big difference in your day. Try to do those big things first, and by doing that, you're going to take the biggest headaches out of your day and you're going to have more time. Don't procrastinate, get those big, ugly things, get those big, heavy tasks done. Because those are the ones that are going to be problematic. The little things, you can always catch up on little things, see? But a lot of us will take on a lot of little tasks because it's easier to achieve. Like, oh, look, I got 8 things done. Yeah, but you left the 2 big ones.
Yeah.
You're seeing what I'm saying? So sometimes we need to reframe the way that we're doing things. We need to, have a reason why. Why are you doing what you're doing? Well, I'm doing it because my child needs my time. I'm doing it because my husband needs my time. My wife needs my support. She's seeking a new career. There's a million reasons why we do what we need to do, but we cannot do any of it if we don't regain some of our time. America has some of the worst life-work balance compared to other countries and places. And it's getting worse. There was a time when I was young that you paid your rent off 1 week's wage and your utilities and bills off another, and you had about 2 weeks' wage. Do you?
Yeah, those days are over.
Is that America now?
No.
Those
days are over.
What?
Those days are over.
Sure?
Yeah, those days are over. I was telling, who was it? We just got paid. What was it? I just got paid. Well, I get paid on Fridays, so I got paid yesterday.
Right.
And after all the bills cleared, it left me with like $10 to my name. And you know what, though? The thing is, I have a buddy of mine that tells me, man, Andy, I want to be more like you. You can have $10 to your name, but as long as all your bills got paid, you're chill. I mean, what's the point? I learned a while back. What's the point of stressing out? If we'll always figure it out. You know what I mean? I remember back in the day, my wife would tell me, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. And I was stressed. There was mornings that I would sit on my kitchen table and I'm in tears because I can't afford the bills. I'm like, what the hell? And then she'd always say, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Once I finally put that in my head that we will figure it out, like I said, as long as I can have $10 to my name, that's one Starbucks, and I'm happy. I'm fucking happy. The car has gas. The bills got paid. There's food in the kitchen. And you know what? The thing that sucks about it the most, man, is that that's with 2 incomes. All right? That's with 2 incomes. So, no, yeah, sometimes I do stress out if I have to, like, have the wife help me with something. But, and I was reminded recently that I need to do, check my ego, because it's okay to accept money from the wife, right? From her income. But like this last paycheck, I didn't need to touch anything from the wife. So I'm $10 to my name, fuck it. I'm good with that.
Right. So now the big difference is, like, the youngest one, he plays hockey. When his season's there, we're at every practice. We're at every game. I call myself the sponsor because I take him to the hockey shop, and I spend time with him getting equipment, making sure his stuff's not broken, getting his skates sharpened, and we make fun of it, and I'll take him to the practice rink and watch him glide around and stuff like that. And I find like a peace in that. And the oldest, bonus son, he's 18 at West Virginia University. And when he came back on his spring break, we all got together, went to a theater, had a nice food, were able to see each other on a man-to-man level, and know each other not as bonus dad and bonus son, but as upcoming young man. And it was beautiful.
So the benefits of gaining time, huh?
Yes, sir.
That's great. Now we were talking yesterday before we, trying to make notes for today's episode, and I told you, hey man, we can't record today because I have to go inside. My son likes to watch wrestling, and he wants to watch the main event. So that's what I spent my evening. And after that was over, they're like, Dad, you want to watch Smallville? And we catch up on TV shows that some of them are 20 years old.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be big things.
Nope.
Big changes come with little steps. Just start looking at people that are burning your time, like I said before. Start looking at doing big tasks first. Put little things off because they're little and they're easy to catch up on.
Right.
And if you really look at your life and you make a list of 10 things around you, even if you're cleaning your house today, make a list of 10 things in your house that you think you need to do, and then look at the 2 big ones. Those are the ones that will propel you forward. And if you structure your time like that and you take out these big menacing things first, you're going to find that you have more time because you can always navigate the little things. And for all of us, how we have to do things are going to be different. So I'm not saying this works for everybody. The biggest thing that I'm trying to do is just bring attention to the fact that here in the United States, we have a horrible work balance. I just gave a scenario of my past, watching my mother, my life experiences. And now when I finally get it straight, right, I'm 57 years old. Oh, my wife's 13 years younger than me. Thank goodness. Oh, beautiful woman. I love her. I love her to death. She's an angel. And I was blessed with 2 bonus sons that I'm able to incorporate, time, compassion, and understanding to. And, it feels like I'm finally doing something right.
You're making up for that lost time.
Sure.
You're doing the same thing The Rock's doing. I don't know if you heard.
You have to. If you know you did it wrong before, why wouldn't you want to do it right if you're blessed with the opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Let's be honest, guys. Who wouldn't want to do it right? We all go I wish I could go back in time and do it right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing it right.
Yeah. The Rock, he had 2 younger. He was wrestling all his life, and I
thought that was me. Look. Here, let me take these off. Look.
Can you do the eyebrow thing? Do the eyebrow thing. Oh, he's trying. Yeah, no, the Rock did the same thing. Like he's doing it now because he said that for his first daughter, he wasn't really there for her because he was always wrestling. It was on TV, and he was busy. And now that he has his 2 youngest ones, he spends as much time as possible with them. And I was like, yeah, no, he's making up for lost time.
Right.
So,
and it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling.
Yeah. No, I know my wife, when I first started doing sales, she told me, I was getting home late. I would leave before they woke up. I would get home by the time they're falling asleep. And, she told me, hey, I didn't marry someone that wasn't there for his kids. I married, someone who loves his kids. And I was like, well, this is what this is the business that I'm in. This is who I am. And she's like, that's not who you are. She's the one that got me, man. And so now I work on, in a territory where I can be done in 8 hours. And I spoke to my boss and I'm like, hey, that I get it. He goes, no, I understand you get everything done in your 8 hours. So you're good. Why? Because I come home and spend that extra. I do have a home life balance because of my territory, that I'm there to pick up the boys from school every day, and then we feed them, we eat dinner, and then if we have time, like just last week, my son, Dad, let's go play basketball, and I was like, it felt good, even though I was getting physically, my body was just kicking my ass, but just the fact that I was out there with my son playing ball, it felt great.
Right.
It felt great, and it's like some people, because they're working so much, they don't have that.
I would invite anyone listening to do one thing, because I know that we're winding down and, I appreciate being here, is make decisions on what you have around you and how you can manage your time, and be consistent. Take a minute to visualize what you would want that new life or that time to be, and how you'd use it, how you'd apply it, who you'd apply it to. Just meditate on it a little bit, think about what that would look like for you. And if you can see it, you can do it, because really it's all a matter of visualizing anything that you want to accomplish. And then it's a matter of putting some actions with it. And the next thing you know, it is there.
Right.
So there are ways to do it, and we'll all have to do it a little different. There's no alls, because we all have different battles.
So
yeah.
So I'm assuming because you weren't there for your kids, your own kids back then, is the reason why you got into what you're doing now, which is remodeling houses.
A lot more. I found a comfortable in a positive way, a comfortable way to have control of my schedule and still have challenges and a lot of diversity in my life. So it's a great salad. How about that?
A great salad. That's funny.
Yeah, man. You want to eat just lettuce with nothing? That's a boring salad. Now we got to put some stuff in it, and everyone's salad's different.
Yeah.
Right? Me, I like a lot of things in there, even some peppers, right? But somebody else may be like, ooh, a little too spicy. But I like the heat. See?
Yeah. Can you talk about some of the house you're working on right now? I know one of the houses was like, what is it?
Yes.
200 years old?
Well, I lived in Arizona, and about, I don't know, a year and a half back, I ended up coming across some videos having to do with West Virginia, and I bought an investment property and ended up falling in love with the area. So I went back to West Virginia and virtually said, hey, we're selling all this stuff over here. Or went back to Arizona and told my family, hey, we're going to sell and move. And we sold and moved, and it's just been a great adventure. So I'm restoring an 1850 townhouse that was built by a gentleman named C.J. Rawlings. And he was actually the first person to record any troop movement or where our troops were going before the Department of Defense even recorded anything. So this house is registered with the National Parks and Services and things like that. And I'm helping preserve houses here in Wheeling, West Virginia, and historic buildings currently.
Yeah. You look like you're distracted over there, buddy.
I had to look back and look at the initials on a name, because I didn't want to say a wrong name, and I always mess up this man's initials, and I have his book sitting over on my mantle over here.
No worries.
So
man.
I looked back to check the initials on the name, because wouldn't that be humiliating to be sitting here and telling you about a historic house and like muff up the guy's initials?
It's all right, buddy. Only 5 people listen to this podcast. You're good.
But yeah, that's what I was looking back at, my friend.
That's cool.
And I think people could understand that. Like if you had somebody's name when you want to get it right.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I guess we're coming towards the end of the podcast. I always ask my guests if they have, minor children, and in this case, you have a minor child. If you were to in 10 years, that minor child, the 13-year-old boy, your 13-year-old son, would go back and listen to this podcast episode, what advice would you have for him? Which you've given plenty of advice on this episode already, but what would you tell him, specifically him?
Something very easy and simple to remember. Everyone says pay yourself first with money. Pay yourself first with your time. It's much more valuable.
There you go. I like that.
That's it.
I like that. All right. Well, to the listeners again, the hotline 818-806-8595. Give it call it up, leave a voice message. I can play it on the podcast. Play your question on the podcast. Instagram, Ride With Me Podcast, TikTok and YouTube, FTA Podcast. You follow me on Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora. Again, if you're listening on Spotify, just hit that follow button, rate the podcast, leave a comment. You can leave a comment now on Spotify. And, like I said, if you want to be a guest on this podcast as well, shoot me a DM or something. I'm not sure, buddy, Bryant, would you like to share your socials, your Instagram or your TikTok? I didn't ask you that earlier.
I don't really care. It doesn't matter either way. I mean, I'm here on Instagram. You have my Instagram. And TikTok, it's the same name. So that's the name on the platforms, bryattheog.
There it is. So if you guys want to check out the houses that he's remodeling and stuff, he has some videos on there. And Brian, well, in that case, like I end every podcast, Brian, thank you for riding with me.
Yeah, it's been a nice ride. Glad you didn't get a flat tire, Andy.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you for listening to Ride With Me, the Flat Tire Andy podcast. You can also listen to us on iTunes, Spotify, and Podbean.